The Norwegian Cowboy. One of the most inaccessible spots in the country, more reachable for Americans than for the Mexican capital. Nowadays, it's known as the Sierra de Juarez. Up north, some ranchers had already colonized vast stretches of land wrested from the humans. Grazing lands were scarce. Some folks claimed that riding southward led to lagoons, forests, and great riches. Others argued it was a lie, just a sterile desert with dunes and cacti, a sure tomb for the uninitiated. They set it as a challenge, to see who was bolder or more foolish. There was this Norwegian who'd spent a good while in California lured by gold, but who also knew a thing or two about cattle ranching, which had helped him amass a fortune. To him, those rumors were a challenge. He knew the peninsula was a vast desert, having seen it from a distance by boat a couple of times, but the challenge seemed lucrative. So, armed with a Colt 45 and a Winchester rifle, enough water and supplies for several days, he set off determinedly, riding the rocky trails of the northern peninsula. Mist shrouded his early mornings on those scorching summer days. Come afternoons, the heat made him think those stories of miles of sand down south were the more likely scenario. During the day, he hunted rabbits for dinner and kept an eye on water courses. He spent several weeks covering the entire terrain. Leaving behind the towering oaks, he began seeing conifers and more even ground. Some areas were heavy on granite, but others seemed suitable enough for ranching. One day, as he was about to head back to camp, in a hurry to make it before nightfall, he decided to take one last look around. With some effort, he climbed atop a massive rock. As he ascended, desert dust beyond the mountains and the slow descent of the sun painted the sky with warm shades of orange and pink. But that's not what caught Jacob's eye. In the distance, he saw a mirror, a lagoon framed by an immense emerald green plain. At that moment, he realized he'd struck a bonanza. He knew he could raise dozens of cattle in no time. That very night, by the firelight, he began packing a couple of hides he'd managed to tan. He cleaned his Colt and Winchester, getting ready to stake his claim on those lands' owners the next day. Approaching winter, Jacob was headed for San Diego to sell some of the cattle he'd managed to raise on those newly discovered plains. He decided to detour to Campo, California, to purchase honey and jerky for the road. It was there he crossed paths with Luman Humphrey Gaskill, the store owner and entrepreneur of the town. Gaskill was struck by Jacob's horse, which he explained was a Mustang bought from a Yavapai Indian and couldn't nobody match its speed and resilience. Gaskill offered him a colt and a horse in exchange for the Mustang, persistently pushing his proposal. However, Jacob declined and didn't even stay to buy anything from Gaskill. Pressing on, he reached where his cattle were and moved them away from Luman's land. Jacob used to stay around the lagoon area, as the whole region was swarming with outlaws who lurked for miners occasionally carrying loads of gold and silver. He only went to Los Angeles or Tucson occasionally to sell cattle, and to San Diego to stash his earnings. In the summer of 1885, returning from Tucson, Jacob had to pass through Campo, California. He tried to keep a low profile in the town, as he wanted to reach San Diego as soon as possible to stash the sale profits. He only veered off to a spot locals called Clear Water or Tecate in their language, to refresh his horse and replenish his canteen. Beside one of the streams, the horse, breaking the granitic sand with its horseshoes, approached the water like a magnet, barely allowing Jacob to dismount. The creek's noise and the horse's steps masked the movement of some nearby shrubs. Gaskill had seen Jacob go by and had brought along James Ward and Andreas Adams, two skilled gunslingers who, along with Gaskill, controlled the region. Gaskill, hidden behind a boulder and armed with a .30-30 rifle, had a clear shot at Jacob's head. Adams and Ward were concealed among the bushes. However, the Mustang sensed danger and galloped along the creek bank, causing Gaskell's shot to miss. Jacob drew his Colt and fought off the bullets until he managed to take cover behind a log. Adams, from one side, riddled the wood with lead, but Ward, stealthily, reached Jacob and put an end to the cowboy with a blow to his temple. In the distance, all one could hear was the horse's gallop and the sound of silver coins in a couple of sacks securely tied to the beast. Ward aimed his revolver at the animal, but Gaskell loaded a cartridge and shot a bullet right between Ward's brows, as the horse was worth more than what was in those sacks. Gaskell and Adams were enough to find the horse and split the silver, but they never managed to locate the beast, as it got lost in Yavapai territory. Unfortunately, Jacob's story came to an end in that tragic encounter by the creek. His bravery and spirit of adventure weren't enough to stand against the treachery and violence of those seeking to exploit his accomplishments. His dream of raising cattle on those fertile lands was shattered by Gaskell's cruelty and his henchmen. The tale of the Sierra de Juarez and its enchanting landscapes, along with the oasis Jacob had discovered, faded into oblivion for many years. However, the memory of that intrepid cowboy lived on among those who cherished courage and determination in the pursuit of a dream. Though Jacob never returned, his legacy lives on in those who dare to explore challenging and unknown territories in search of new opportunities. His story reminds us that sometimes fate can be harsh, but passion and courage will always leave an indelible mark on the history of those who dare to defy limits.